So hey, this is Yasuki Wolf, and welcome to another episode of our Sunday morning live streams for Japan Quest. And I'm going to be honest with you, I am very tired. I have been working pretty long hours for the past month or so, and haven't had haven't had many days off. I've worked for some amount of hours almost every day, every weekend or every day for most of this month. And yeah, it's starting to wear me down a little bit. But I made a commitment to make a new video every week, so I'm going to stick to that. And so first off, let's just give you some updates about how things are going with Archetype and the process of getting that released for iOS in Japan. And this year I spent most of this week. What did we do? Well, we were redoing the whole skill system of the game, and apparently it's not going to be called skills anymore. I'm not really sure what's going to happen there, but we basically redid the whole aspect of skills in the game for this week, and added a whole new system to the game. So actually, I was planning on doing a live stream of the actual gameplay today, but since we're changing a lot of the actual UI of the game, I would think it would probably be better to show you the new version of the UI rather than the old version. So I'm going to wait maybe a week or two before I do that. And when I do that, I'm going to probably be doing that from my work, because I don't really have it set up at home to live stream from a portal from like an iPhone. So I'd have to do that directly from work. So I may like change the actual time of when I do the live stream. It may not be Sunday morning. I might have to do it like Friday night, or Friday night for me would be like Friday morning for most people over in like America and in like Pacific Standard Time, I think. So maybe that wouldn't be the best. Maybe I might go to work on like a Saturday night or something. I'll figure it out. But anyways, I'll be sure to put that up on YouTube maybe at least 24 hours early, so that you can see an announcement showing that when we're going to do that, because I think it'd be for my general like weekly Sunday blog thing. It doesn't really matter to me too much if we get a lot of people coming. I mean, if you can arrange your schedule to come and be here live, that'd be great. But just having this on archive is cool for me too. But for the live stream of the game, I think it'd be pretty cool if we actually had some people live being able to comment, and especially because like for me, I've been working on this game for like a year or so now. Well, and if you count the board game, it's been 2 years, but in terms of the digital, it's been about a year. And so like I could live stream live stream like a let's play of the game, but like I'm so used to it. You don't have that like new feeling of like, oh, this is like, oh, this is interesting, or that's interesting. Like now I'm so used to everything that I don't know what would be the parts of that you'd be interested in knowing more about, or so it'd be good to have someone live there to be able to ask questions and be like, hey, can you tell me more about this, or can you explain that? And I think that would be cool. Maybe might try to see if I could find someone to co-host it with me or something, but I don't know, we'll figure that out in the future. But yeah, as for the Japan Quest vlogs, we are now more or less up to date. Up till now, I've been just going through like the history of like what I've done in Japan and why I came over here, and what I've been doing over here and so forth. And that was going pretty well. It gave me a pretty standard flow of topics to go through each week. But now we're pretty much up to date. So like I don't have anything else I don't have anything else in that timeline anymore. So we've gone through when I came to Japan, when I studied manga, when I came over to when I switched over to gaming, and how I got the gaming design and everything. So now we're pretty much at current time. So that means that I guess for the most part, the only thing I could really do for Japan Quest then is to just have it as be like a weekly like update of like what I've been up to, and maybe different topics I've thought of throughout the week. Unfortunately, though, I think that for the most part, in 1 week, there isn't going to be enough content to make a full hour-long episode per se. So in the future, I may start making Japan Quest be something I do once every other week or maybe once a month. I'm not quite decided yet, but just to give it a little bit more time to have some content to build up that I could touch on. And another thing that'd be very helpful is if you leave questions for me. I could go and instead of having it being like a chronological order, if you have a question that goes back to something I said in a different video or like just a completely different topic, I could definitely do a Japan Quest vlog on our stream on any other topics you might have. So go ahead and leave comments for any questions you might have. I generally check my comments right before I start the video. So that's like maybe just about once a week. So I may not reply right away, but I'm checking them at least once a week. So before I do the next video, I'll check there. And for the most part, when I start up, I'll probably give a quick rundown of what I've been up to for that week, and then go into any questions you might have had, any comments that I read that I think is worth talking about on the stream. And if there is a question that's beefy enough, I might just make the whole stream just devoted to answering that question. So yeah, if you want to help me out to find the topics of discussion for each week, please just write as many comments as you can about like what you want, and I'll do my best to touch on those in the order that I receive them, more or less. Otherwise, if there weren't any particular comments or questions, and say that particular week I didn't have a whole lot going on to fill up a whole stream on, I'll probably just start doing a little bit more of the illustration type stuff. I really want to get back to the manga workshops. Unfortunately, that requires a little bit more time because I think especially with manga, excuse me, especially manga, I don't want to jump right into the digital side of it. I know there's things like Manga Studio or Comic Studio or like digital software that you can use to do manga, and you can even do it in Photoshop or whatnot. But I think that for manga, I mean, part of it maybe because I went to the manga school and this is the way I learned it, but I think it's really helpful to see it, to learn it traditionally first, to see what it's like to do background kokasen. I have to figure out the actual English terminologies for these. To do like do different like background elements or like different effects and things by hand first before you mess with the computer. So I think that actually even helps you when you're doing the computer too, because then you can kind of see like what it is that the computer is trying to emulate. So for me, it's important that when I go back to the Manga Studio, that I really want to do that not just seeing my computer screen, but actually getting an actual video camera and videotaping me drawing in by hand. And then that requires me to first off to get out the camera, get the paper out, to get the inks ready and stuff. And I mean, that wouldn't be a big deal if I was still back when I was in school and I was doing that every day. That wouldn't be a big deal. But right now, most of my daily work is all digital, so it would take a bit of time to get everything ready. And then after doing the video, you have to edit that. So in order to be able to produce that content, I need to actually have like a full weekend off. And unfortunately, ever since like the new year, I haven't really had a full weekend off in a while. So and I would like to like commit to saying like I'll do a Manga Studio or manga workshop every other week or once a month or something. But since I don't know when I'm going to have those days off, it's hard for me to say exactly that this day will be Manga Studio or this day will be that. So sort of the default is going to be the Japan Quest vlog, and then if there is then after that, if there isn't a whole lot of content to vlog about, then it'll basically the default after that would be digital illustration. So like today, I have a video that I took while I was working of this Dryad that I was drawing. And I'm going to go over a little bit about like what I was thinking while I was drawing this and sort of the process that I had in here. Because of digital illustration, it's pretty much just a screen capture. You just capture your screen, and then I can just talk about that. So that doesn't have a whole lot of production it's involved. So that's something I could have also as sort of a default whenever I have to go to work or do other things and don't have a full weekend to kind of like get things edited and everything. But yeah, definitely I would. Once I do have those weekends that are free and I have the extra time after putting something up to like kind of go on and edit things and record and stuff, then I'll definitely start getting the the manga workshops going again, and I'm thinking I'm going to do like one week will be like digital. I'm sorry, 1 week will be traditional, and the next week will be digital, so that way you can kind of see the difference of how you would do something traditionally, and then next week we'll have how you do it digitally. Yeah, I'm not sure how many of my viewers are actually still into manga necessarily, because I know that initially I got a lot of my viewership from doing manga videos, but I mean, I have no one but myself to blame, but I think I've been less active in getting those videos up, so I'm not sure how many of my current viewers are still from that original crowd that was into the manga thing. So I don't know, just give me feedback about if you want to see more of the digital, if you're fine with just the digital ones more, or I don't know. But yeah, but for the most part, that's the way we're going to do it, because of just my own production, my own schedule of how I can produce things. That will have the kind of default is the vlog, and I'll answer any questions and comments that you may have through that, and then the next thing underneath that would be doing Priority Rise, I guess, would be the illustration, digital illustration type videos. And then whenever I have the time, then I'll start putting together the manga workshop. And of course, we'll also do the live stream for my work and everything. But that's kind of related to the Japan quest. So, but yeah. So for today, you see right here we're drawing a Dryad, and I think that most probably most people kind of have heard of Dryads before. They're basically just the nymph spirit of a tree, basically. From, I think it's from Greek mythology. Yeah, I think a Dryad is actually a form of nymph. There's many different types of nymphs. So there's like Dryad, Naiad, Oread. I think that's for the Naiad is for water or rivers, I believe, and then the Oread is for mountains and valleys and things. And I always found that kind of interesting, so I wanted to include that into our game. At this point, I think there's only Dryad and then Water Nymph, who then turns into I think she turns into a Naiad, and then a Oceanus, which is, I think, is the ocean nymph or something. So I think that we only have those two right now. The Dryad is in the board game. She's not actually in the digital game yet. She's going to be released in the digital game in February, which means that probably by the time it comes to America, she'll already be in it. But so that's sort of the reason why I'm working on this right now. And to give you a quick idea of why that is, give me 1 second to just switch my the screen that I'm showing you. All right, so this is my Deviant Art account, which I haven't really updated in like half a year, but I'm going to try to do that also whenever I have a day off. That'll be another thing I'll try to start doing. But so this is the original Dryad that I drew way back when we were just doing the board game. And at that time, for the board game, basically you have two forms. You have the pre-evolution and the evolution. So this is the pre-evolved Dryad, and then she evolves to this Dryad. And so it was just like two basic forms. But for the digital version, she's actually going to have 4 steps to her evolution. So there'll be this Dryad, and then like a slightly stronger version of this Dryad, and then this Dryad, and then a stronger version of that Dryad. This is one of my original rough concepts that I drew for the Dryad, but this one was actually rejected for this one instead. So, but yeah, that's a side topic. But yeah, so what we're doing now so what I had to do now is, because since they have to start making the 3D model for the Dryad to be able to release to be able to release it in February, I'm now editing this drawing to make another version of her. And so now coming back to the other video. Yep, so that is what's happening here. This particular video says about 30 minutes left. I think I actually have a faster sped up version of this, so let me actually switch to that one. The current one you're watching is in real time, but I'm going to switch it to 2 times speed. So it's this one is twice as fast. So you could kind of, you can see the process a little bit faster. But so first off, you see that I kind of put a slightly transparent white layer over the drawing I had before. And that's basically so that I can like separate the new elements that I'm adding to the old elements that I have. So the old drawing is just at the very bottom, it's the very bottom layer. And then above that, I have, I don't know if you could see this, if I point with my mouse here, you have a white layer here. And then that has a transparency on it. I think it's probably like 80%, something like that. I don't know for sure, but I just made that somewhat transparent so that I can start drawing these 3 layers on top. And you see the little red bar here? That's for Clip Studio. That is a clipping mask. Photoshop and other software has the same thing, so it's nothing particularly new, but that's a very useful tool to use, and I'll describe that in a second. But so you have basically these 3D layers that I'm working with right here. The very top layer is the line art, and I'll point that out next time it's kind of clear that you can see the line art layer. Did I show that? Let's see here. Yeah. So here you can see the line art. So that's just that was just drawn directly with a pen tool. Usually you would do like a rough, and I actually do have a rough layer down here somewhere, but I deleted that already because I was doing the line art on top of that. But like, oh, there you saw it for a second there. Let me move back a second. Where is it? It should come up in a second. There it is. So you see these green like smudges around here? That was my rough. So usually you would do like a really nice rough where like you would actually like kind of almost do like a pencil layer. But once you get kind of confident with your line work with the inking tool, you end up having to do less and less of that. So like this rough probably makes no sense to you, I would imagine. It's just like there's just these green things that are like way off from where the actual lines are. But basically, like I just kind of drew. See, it'd be nice if I could actually bring this up, but I'll do that next time. But I actually just had like a I didn't use a pencil. I just used a brush, and I just put color like down to see like, okay, what would it look like if we had more green in this area? What would it look like if we had more like red in this area? And I just kind of painted that all down. And then once I could see like a general idea that if you zoom out, you could kind of look and be like, okay, if it would look kind of like this when it's finished. And then, okay, this looks good. So then you zoom back in, and then I just started doing the inking layer directly on top of that. So usually you would have a more detailed like pencil layer, but since this is something I already drew once and I was kind of confident in like the type of line work that I was going to be doing, I just went directly to the line layer. So that's the very top layer is the line art, and then underneath that, well, this is actually 3 layers. So imagine that there's only 2 at this point. So there's the top layer, and then underneath the top layer you make a new layer, and the new layer is going to be just a blanket color. It could be pretty much any color, and you just to show the area that you want to actually fill in with color. So let's you would fill in that whole area with color, that basically everything that's inside the line art. And then in between those 2 layers, then you put a clipping mask. And what a clipping mask does, I'm sure many of you probably already know, but the clipping mask makes sure that whatever you draw on the clipping mask layer never goes outside of the layer underneath it. So when I said that you drew like just a blanket layer of color, that just defines the areas that you want to be drawing on. So that then when you draw on the clipping mask above that, it automatically makes sure that you never go outside of that area. So you already have like your area defined. And so that just makes those are the general 3 layers that I'm working with. And you'll see more layers add throughout the process, but generally they're all kind of fit into those 3 different categories more or less. So let's see what we're doing now. It looks like right now in the bottom layer I kind of separated the colors somewhat. If so, like right now there's 2 different type of color schemes that are going on for the new elements that I'm adding. There's the bark, like the brownish color for the tree bark, and then there's the green for the different like leaves and stuff that are falling down. It looks like I'm not doing the green right now, so right now I'm just doing the bark. You may want, when you actually do different colors, you may want to split up into different layers. And I think I may actually do. I actually do that later, but we'll see what happens there. So let's see. Right now we're in the clipping mask layer, and we already have the basic color down on the layer below that. I had like a blanket color, and then I just put like a general gradation of browns and reds and kind of yellows, to just kind of make it blend into what I already had drawn underneath it. And you can see right now it looks like I've gotten rid of the initial white layer that I mentioned at the beginning, because now I'm trying to make sure that the colors actually blend in. So originally I wanted to have the new elements separated from the old elements, but now I'm trying to see what they look like together. So the white layer is not visible at the moment. And after having the basic colors blended on the bottom layer, now in the clipping mask layer, I'm just drawing where I want to have what do you call that? I guess it would be shadows. It's shadows, but it's kind of almost like a texture more than shadows. And at this moment, I'm actually not even worrying about the gradation of the shadows. I'm just more or less thinking about where I want to put the shadows. It's sort of like cell shading, and I think in a lot of ways the Japanese like anime or manga illustration style is very much like a cell shaded style. You're not really putting like gradations so much. You're just defining areas. Myself being more from a Western background, I can't stop myself from putting in some gradation. So I kind of like follow the rules somewhat of how to do a Japanese style, and where I focus more on the defining the areas than I do on the actual gradations or like mixing different colors. But being that I am more of a Western background, I still do prefer the kind of blended looks. So I put blending in there as much as I could get away with. So that's why you kind of see how the bottom layer, maybe if you were doing a purely manga style, it would just be one flat brown color. But I didn't like the look of that, so I made sure that to like had like mixtures of like red and yellow into that layer, so it's not just a straight flat color, but it actually has some variation and gradation into it, and that kind of gives it the illusion of having of being like a really deeply rendered drawing, even though it's basically just a blanket layer with some reds and yellows kind of like thrown on it haphazardly. But so then after that, now we're still just defining the shadows, and it's more or less the textures of the texture of the bark. And it'll take me a little while to do that. And like I mentioned before, I'm not worrying about gradation or anything right now, because what I'm planning to do is after I after I define all those layers, I have to remember to turn like Skype and Skype off next time, because it's distracting when people try to Skype me in the middle of a stream, right? But so yeah, after we get those areas defined, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lock the layer. And you can do this in Clip Studio Pro. You can do this in Photoshop. I'm sure you can do it in many other similar software. But I'm gonna lock the layer. Stop messaging me. Right, I'm gonna lock the layer, and then I could blend on top of it. And similar to like the clipping layer, where you could make sure that your lines never go outside of that defined area. When you lock the layer, that means that anything that you can only draw on what you've already drawn already. Does that make sense? It's like if you draw a line there, you can only draw on that particular line, and you can't draw outside of it. I may have to actually take a minute to actually show you this in reality, because it's hard to like describe some of these things, but I'll go into that more afterwards if there's time. So once we get to that, I'll show you too. So I'm still just keying those areas. Should we zoom forward a little bit? Let's see here. Yeah, a little bit further. I think actually maybe I did it around here. Okay, yeah, it's a little bit, after a little bit, probably do it. But I'm finding myself using Clip Studio more and more lately, because I just like the way that the colors blend and stuff in it. It just seems to be more natural than Photoshop. And We'll be interested in doing more videos about Clip Studio in particular in the future. But a lot of these methods I'm talking about here, they are pretty translatable to any software you're using, I would imagine, especially anything that has like a basis in like Photoshop. So Photoshop could do most of these things with the basic clip layers, masking, and things like that. All right, see, I'm thinking it's around here where I start actually putting the shading in. Yeah, so I don't know if you can really tell, but so right now I'm shading, but it only shades those areas that I just defined earlier because I have the layer locked. So that way, areas of those like textures that I think should be darker, I could have a dark. I could just paint a darker color on top of that, and it will automatically make it darker, but only in those defined areas. Like you can see, like around her legs and like around like the top of her, what was that, like her hip? You see where I was like just drawing there. It kind of yeah, like see around here, it's a lot darker than it is over here. And you could, and oppositely, you could add like areas of highlight and stuff as well. And so now I think I have a new layer. Yeah, see, so now we have another clipping layer on top of that one, and this one's going to be for highlights. And so now we're going through and we're just going to highlight those different areas. And I don't use it so much here, but I'll probably will do it later on with the greenery, with the plant type areas. Is that with the kind of cool thing about a clipping layer is that if you have like if you put shading down like in a gradation over that clipping layer, since it's separate than the color that's underneath it, you can have like a gradation of shading and then actually delete or like erase, would be the right word, erase areas of that shading, and it will almost start looking like a highlight even before you even put the highlight layer on. So you can have almost three layers of like shading, actually four even. Yeah, it'd be like shading, your mid-tone, and then like your highlight, and then you have like the areas that you erase would kind of have a contrast between the shading that you put on it. It's a bit tough to describe, but I'll go through it live in future videos. I'd like to go through live, like the whole process from beginning to end. When we have time for recording that. But okay, so let's see here. I'm gonna just fast forward a little bit. There, yeah, just putting the highlights in there, checking to see what it looks like, checking to make sure that it's blending into what was originally drawn there. I don't know. I kind of like it because it's like it's really simple, the stuff that I'm doing there. It's really nothing particularly complex, but then it looks really complex when you're done, which I'm kind of happy with the way that the texture works out there. And of course, you just keep in mind things about like where you think the light's going to be hitting, and where you think shadows are going to be falling, and so forth. So that's pretty much the texture of her bark. So now we're putting the now we're going to put the greens down, and it looks like, yeah, it looks like I actually combined the layers of the other one before. So because I was pretty happy with that, I was sure I wasn't going to touch it anymore. Otherwise, you might not want to combine them. But then, so now I have this brand new layer here, which is where all my greens are. And this layer is being clipped to that the bottom layer as well, because the bottom layer for this, it wasn't just the browns. It was like every new element that I wanted to add. I made that layer have just a blanket color over them. Like you saw for a second there when it clicked off. See if we can go back to it. Come on, click it off. See, this is why. Yeah. See, this is why it's better to do it like to actually be drawing at the same time as talking, so that you could control this stuff. But here we go. Yeah, yeah. Well, I tried to show you, but you saw a second there where it clicked on and off, right? So see if I can catch it this time. There, I can't catch it. One more time. 3, 2, come on, come on. Okay, I gave up. But yeah, you saw for a second where it turned on and off. So you see how there was kind of like a light brown color. That was just basically the blanket color that I put down for every new element that I wanted to add to the drawing. And so then that layer is the very bottom layer, and everything's being clipped to that. So the green's being clipped to that layer. So all the new elements are being like defined, not defined, constrained to that area. And then there's some areas that that I have to clean up though, because I mean, it doesn't always work perfectly, but for the most part, things are always more or less constrained to where I want them to be, and I'm cleaning them up. And you may have noticed there's a couple of line elements that are going outside of where I want them, but I'm not worried about that. Like, so you can see like this these lines here are kind of crossing over into her hair, and some lines over here as well. But I'm not really worrying about that right now, because I know they're on a separate layer, and I could clean them up later. And so now I'm just kind of defining. It's just a blanket green color for all the green stuff that I want to add, and that's all going to be in this layer right here. And then once we have got defined, then we're going to continue shading in a similar way that we did with the bark earlier, where we add another layer on top of that for shading, and then another layer for highlights, and just make sure that they're all in a clipping mask. And here I'm kind of cleaning up, because see here, you see that there's the green is kind of going over another new element, so they're both on the same, within the same clipping mask. So that I'm kind of cleaning up manually. I mean, you could plan it out better where you have each part in a completely separate layer, and you have them completely separated, so you don't have to worry about any cleanup stuff. But I was just trying to get this done quickly, so I didn't want to have like 100 layers or anything. So I was all right with just cleaning it up a little bit afterwards. And here you see, like I have the bottom layer selected, and when I say bottom in this case, I'm talking about the actual original drawing. So like so it has like the outline of her arms and everything, and that allows me to be able to delete any of those line works that are crossing over before. They're crossing like through her arms or her hands and things like that. And it allows me to delete that while making sure that I don't delete the newer parts that I actually want to leave there. And so yeah, and I keep saying delete, but I think erase is actually the more correct word in this case. Yep. So we've added some new bark to her. We're adding more greens, more vines, more leaves and everything. And I think we changed her the branches coming out of her head. We turned those into antlers. And I ended up changing the color of her hair and doing some other stuff as well. But that I didn't get to record that. So I'll put up a link in Deviant Art later once I actually get around to putting the new version of the drawing on Deviant Art. I'll put a link in this video with the old version of the drawing and the new version. But so now see what I'm doing is I'm just adding, like I mentioned earlier, how I don't like having a straight matte color. So I add some gradation to it. And it's just very like haphazardly. I'm not really like thinking of like doing like this being the finalized shading or anything. I'm just kind of thinking like, okay, well, let's make this area a little bit darker, and this area let's put some yellowish greens, and this area will put some of this. So just so it gives you a little bit more variation and sense of rendering. And then after having done that, then we make a new layer. Let's see here. Where do I make the new layer? Around here. There we go. So now I made a new layer. And now on this layer, I'm actually going to be putting the darker shading. And I kind of messed up a little bit at this point. Like you can see that how dark it is around her head, because I kind of overdid the shading on the bottom layer, and I made it too dark. So that was a bit of a miss on my part, but I mean, you could deal with it. So so this layer right now is the dark shading where this is where I'm actually thinking about like the shadows and stuff, where it's not just like a gradation type of thing. It's where I'm really trying to think like, okay, so I need to find this leaf over this leaf, and this leaf is on top of that leaf, and there's a shadow coming from this branch here, or so forth. And so that's where I'm defining those. And this is what I was mentioning earlier, where the cool thing you could do here is that since your shading is on a separate layer from the color beneath it, you can shade fairly. You can add gradation and have it be fairly dark, and have it kind of have a gradation go over almost the whole area, because what that allows you to do is it allows you to use the eraser tool to. I think you can see it right now. I'm kind of erasing certain areas now. And when I erase, it actually looks like I'm adding highlights, but really I'm not. I'm just erasing some of the gradation of the shading that I just put in, and that reveals that original color that was underneath it, and that kind of makes it like it's like a highlight, but not. It's actually a midlight, I guess, because it's not any brighter than the original color, and I think that's especially good for like reflective light. I still want to learn a little bit more about shading and actual the way that light works, but so I could be wrong about this to some extent, but in general the kind of rule that I go by and what I think makes sense to me is that if you have a highlight hitting one side of your object, and then you have reflective light hitting the other side. When I was earlier on when I was painting, I used to actually put a highlight on the other side to represent that reflective light. But the highlight is the part where the light is hitting. The place where the light is reflecting usually isn't going to be a highlight. It's more just going to be lighter than the shading, but it's still not going to be a highlight. So like I think that's more of like a mid-light maybe. And the terminology could be wrong there, but so I found that the easiest way to do that sort of reflective light, to get that reflective light to look realistic for me, is to actually erase. So I have the shading on a different layer, and then I can erase the shading where I want the reflective light to hit, and then that makes it look like the reflective light there. And then after that, you make another layer on top, and then you do the highlights. But so let's see here. I'm still kind of blending this in. Lots of like random stuff in here. It looks like for some reason the layers, like it left like some white areas when I use like the bucket tool or something. So I'm trying to clean that up at that point. And then now here we are. Here we're putting the highlights in. So, and I don't know if this is really even a highlight at this point. I think it's just I wanted to add a little more definition to the shapes. So I put some lighter colors down. And that's about the end of this tutorial. Well, I don't know if this is really a tutorial. It's just sort of like a walkthrough, I guess, of what I was working on this week. But yeah, so here you see where this is kind of exactly what I was talking about before. How I just kind of put like a straight, like I put a complete. Let me go back a little bit, because that's more almost exactly what I was talking about earlier. So like I have this area here, and I have a shading layer, and I'm gonna just shade over like the whole area, and you'll see me just kind of like put a little bit of shading in, and then I just end up just blotching out the whole thing with shades. Here we go. And now after doing that, now I have this like shaded layer. So now I can go back with an eraser and highlight areas, even though it's not really a highlight, but so it's just erasing, and that's restoring the original color. And so that way you could kind of get that definition of your lights and darks without putting too many highlights on, because you want to have that sort of depth where the highlights are really emphasizing the places where the light's hitting, while you have other areas that are just kind of like your neutral colors and then your shadows and everything. And it's also just an effective way to be able to kill two birds with one stone, because you're basically just using a shading layer, but you're both shading and adding like definition to the lighted areas as well at the same time. And that's basically just my sort of process, more or less. For the most part, I'm never going to say like this is the way that you draw something. I'm always going to be like, this is the way that I draw this, or this is the way that I do this. And if you could learn something from that, that's all the better. But yeah, I don't really feel that there's only one right way to do things. So I'm always going to be just kind of giving my 2 cents and hoping that can be useful to you. And let me know any other stuff that you would like to know. And I hope that was enjoyable. That'll be all for this week. And until next time, yoroshiku.